Hi, this is Krista at The Secret Yarnery. Today we are making this gorgeous pansy flower granny square. This sweet pansy flower granny square looks complicated, but it's really easy to make using basic crochet stitches and following the step-by-step tutorial. And it's actually a granny square. It's not an applique that is stitched onto a granny square. This is a real one-piece flower granny square. It is also block 8 of the Bloomscape Cal, which is one new flower granny square every month that we join at the end of the year to form this stunning blanket. So if you haven't started the Bloomscape Cal, it is not too late to join us. I will link all of that in the cards as well as its description box down below. All of my tutorials are available in both left and right-handed, so if you are a left-handed crocheter or know someone who is, I have you covered. I'll link my left-handed crochet tutorials in the description box below. And if you want to follow along with a written pattern, it's available over on my website, secretyarnery.com. And you don't have to worry about being able to read a pattern. All of my patterns are written in plain English, just like I was sitting there right beside you. To make this poppy granny square, you will need 7 different colors of yarn. That includes the leaves and all of the different colors of the petals. I'm using a size 4 worsted weight acrylic. This is mostly from Ice Yarns, but you can use whatever yarn you have on hand, and you just need tiny little scraps. You don't really need that much, especially to make your flowers. The most you're gonna need is the color you use to turn it into the granny square. I'm using a 5mm crochet hook. You'll also need a needle for sewing in your ends and a pair of scissors. Here are the timestamps. You can jump back to where you left off, and let's get started. So starting with your center color, make a slip knot any which way you normally do. Shrink that down and pop it onto your hook and chain 3. 1, 2, and 3. And we want to go in right here into this very first stitch we made. So just pop your hook in. You can hold your tail along your work. Just make a little U shape underneath your hook, holding that open with your finger and thumb, and slip stitch to form a ring, and chain 1. And now into the center of that ring, we want to do 12 single crochets right where we're holding it open. And we want to go over our tail. So there's 1, 2, 3. So you can pause the video, keep working around 12 single crochets. And if you need some more room around your ring, just slide your stitches back so all your single crochets can lay nice and flat along your ring. There is 11 and 12. Now we're going to slip stitch into the top of that first real single crochet right there. So slide your hook in, 2 strands of that stitch on the top of your hook, and slip stitch to join, chain 1, and cut your yarn, leaving a long enough tail to sew in with a needle later. Pull your hook up and your yarn through, and snug that down to secure. And that finishes color A. Are you enjoying yourself? Go ahead and hit this button under this video right now so you don't miss out on any more fun content just like this. To start color B, we want to look for the second stitch after our join. So there is our join. Just want to go into this stitch right there. So slide your hook into that second stitch after the join. Loop of your new yarn on your hook. Bring it through and slip stitch with both strands to join. Drop your tail and chain 4. 1, 2, 3, and 4. Now we're going to skip 3 stitches. So we're going to skip 1, 2, and 3. We're going to go into the 4th stitch right there. So skipping 3 and into the 4th, 1 single crochet, chain 4, 1, 2, 3, and 4, skip 3, 1, 2, 3, going into the 4th, right there, 1 single crochet, chain 4, 1, 2, 3, and 4. And now we're going to go right into the legs of this first stitch. Right there, right in the legs of that stitch. So pop your hook in and slip stitch to join. And slip stitch into this next space. Chain 1, and we're going to make 9 single crochets into this space. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and you can slide those stitches back to give yourself some more room in that same space. 6, 7, 8, and 9. Slide those back and slip stitch into that same space, 1 slip stitch, just to finish off our small petal, or the beginning of our petal. Now into the next space, that next chain 4 loop, we're going to just go in and slip stitch to start. Chain 1, and now 9 single crochets into this space. 1, 2, 3, 4. Remember to slide those stitches back to give yourself some more room. 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9, and slip stitch to finish off that petal. And now slip stitch into the next space. Chain 1, and now we're going to do 12 double crochets into this space. So 12 double crochets. So there is 1, 2, 3, 10, 11, and 12. Chain 1, and we're going to slip stitch to finish off that petal, all into the same space. Slip stitch, and now we're going to slip stitch in to where our first petal, just over into this other side. Just that very first stitch. It doesn't really matter. Don't stress out about it. Just get your hook into the first stitch that you can, and chain 1. Now flip your work over. So get your tail out of the way and get your working yarn a little bit out of the way also. We want to look for this first single crochet, and we want to just get that on our hook. Just like that. We're going to do a back post slip stitch. So just grab your yarn and slip stitch, just to get our working yarn back down into that first spot where we started our single crochet. Chain 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. So now we're going to go around this next single crochet there, doing our back post slip stitch. Just like that. And chain 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. Now look for your last single crochet that we haven't worked around, that little guy there, and we're going to do the same thing. So just slide your hook under so you have that post on your hook, and slip stitch. Just like that. Chain 1 to secure your yarn. Now you can cut your yarn, pull your hook up and your yarn through, and snug that down to secure. And that finishes color B. To start color C, we're going to start right here over on this side at the beginning of our two matching short petals, these two short guys. We're going to start right where that short petal begins, and we have our chain over there. So we're just going to go in to that very first stitch. So I'm going to go into this stitch right here, right after our chain. So just pop your hook in, loop of color C on your hook, bring it through and slip stitch with both strands to join, and drop your tail. Now these tails we're not going to work over. We're going to leave this tail for later. So just hold it to the side so we don't bother it. It just stays there. And chain one. Into that very same stitch, we're going to do 1 half double crochet into the same stitch. 1 half double. And now into each stitch going along our petal, we're going to do 1 double crochet into each. So starting in the next stitch, and each stitch all the way along until we get closer to the end. So 1 double crochet into each stitch along the middle of your petal, 1 double crochet into each. Then when you have your 1 stitch left, right at the end when it starts going down on that hill, that's where we want to do our 2 half double crochets into the last stitch. So 2 half double crochets, 1 and 2, chain 1, and we're going to slip stitch just down into that space, into that stitch. So 1 slip stitch. Now over into the next petal. Just look for the first stitch you can find. Don't stress out about it because all flowers are unique. So just go in where you can. Our stitch count doesn't matter anymore. We have an idea of it, but don't beat yourself up if it's hard. And these little stitches at the beginning can be difficult to get into. So you might even want to just go into that space, but I'm going to try to get into that stitch. There we are. I'm going to slip stitch in there. There we go. And chain 1. Now into the next stitch, right here, we're going to do 2 half double crochets. So 2 half doubles, 1 and 2. And now working along this petal, we're going to do 1 double crochet into each stitch all the way along until we get closer to where it slopes down. So we want to leave that last stitch, but all the way along the petal, 1 double crochet into each, working all the way along. Just like that. Now into our very last stitch, right there, we're going to do 2 half double crochets. So just slide your hook into that last stitch, 2 half doubles, 1 and 2, chain 1, and now we're going to slip stitch as far down as we can, just into that next stitch right down in the bottom there. Slip stitch. And into our next petal, we're going to do the same thing. So we're going to work into that next stitch, and you can even go into that first space right after that stitch. Whatever's easier for you. Slip stitch. Chain 1 into that same stitch or space, 2 half double crochets, 1 and 2, and now into each stitch along this petal right until we get to the end. We're going to do 1 double crochet into each. So wrap your yarn. You can even work into that very first stitch, 1 double crochet, and 1 double crochet into each stitch all the way along the bottom of your petal. When you get closer to the end, you just want to look for that last stitch. This guy here on the hill, as soon as it starts sloping down, that is your last stitch over there. So we want to work into every stitch until we get to this one. So I can do 1 more double crochet, and then into that last stitch on the side there, 2 half double crochets. 1 and 2, chain 1, and now we're going to slip stitch just down into that space or into that stitch. Whatever is easier for you, slip stitch. And now we're going to slip stitch over here into our first stitch, just there along the side of our next petal, just to join it up. So slip stitch straight over into our first petal we did of this color. Slip stitch and chain 1. Now into that very same stitch, right where we chained, we're going to do our 2 half double crochets. So wrap your yarn and 2 half double crochets, 1 and 2. And now into each stitch along this petal, we're going to do 1 half double crochet into each until we get to that last stitch over here. So you can pause the video, 1 half double crochet into each stitch of this petal all the way until you get to the last stitch. Now our last stitch is right here. Right there, that's our last stitch that we can work into. So into our last stitch, 2 half double crochets, 1 and 2, chain 1, and now we're going to slip stitch down into that last little space down there. 1 slip stitch, and now into the petal, into our next petal, we can slip stitch right down here into this space, just where our chain 1 space is. So you can just pop your hook in and slip stitch, chain 1, and now into that same spot, 2 half double crochets to start. 1 and 2. And now into each stitch along this petal, 1 half double crochet into each until the end, into the last stitch, we're going to do our 2 half double crochets. So 1 half double into each stitch all the way along this petal until we almost get to the end. So you can pause the video and keep working along. 1 half double into each stitch, and I'll meet you when we get closer to the end of this petal. At the end of our petal, we have this 1 stitch left right there, so that's where we're going to put our 2 half double crochets. 1 and 2, chain 1, and now into this little space at the bottom, or the last stitch you can work into, we are going to slip stitch to join, or to pin down our petal. So 1 slip stitch, and also going to slip stitch into that next petal, just a little stitch on the edge right there. We're going to slip stitch just to finish off our petals. 1 slip stitch, chain 1 to secure your yarn, cut your yarn, leaving a long enough tail to sew in with a needle later. Pull your hook up and your yarn through. So we have 2 tails for color C. We want to leave these tails. We're not going to be cutting these off. These are going to stay. We need them for later. And that finishes color C. To start color D, we want to turn our flower over. Now we're going to start on these 2 loops we made at the back. That's where we're going to start. So just go into the first loop, put your hook just into the space underneath that loop, and grab your color D loop of yarn on your hook, bring it through and slip stitch with both strands to join. Drop your tail, and again, we're not going to work over this tail. We want these 2 to match up later. We need those 2 together, so don't work over your tail. And chain 1. Now make 1 single crochet just into the space, 1 half double crochet. Now we are going to do 12 double crochets into the same space. 12 double crochets. So there's 1, 2, 3. If you need more space, you can slide those stitches back to give yourself more room to work just over that chain. And you can pause the video and keep working along 12 double crochets into the same space. So there is my 12 double crochets. Now into the next space, just jumping straight over, 12 double crochets into the next chain space. So pause the video and keep working along. 12 double crochets into this space. So there's my 12. Now we're going to do 1 half double crochet and 2 single crochets. 1 and 2. And slip stitch into that same space just to finish off our petal. Whatever we start with on this side, we want to do the same on the other side. Chain 1 and turn your work. Now into our very first stitch, we're going to make 1 single crochet into this first stitch, 1 single crochet. Into our next stitch, 1 half double crochet. And into each stitch all the way along, we're going to do double crochets all the way till we get to the middle. So double crochets, 1 into each stitch all the way along. These 2 stitches in the center, the first and last of each petal, here we want to do 1 half double crochet into each stitch. So 1 half double crochet into the last stitch of the petal we're working on, and 1 half double crochet into the first stitch of the next petal. 1 half double crochet. And now keep working along, 1 double crochet into each stitch all the way and leave your last 2 stitches. So 1 double crochet into each stitch all the way along, and I'll meet you when you get closer to the end of this petal. When you get to the end of your petal, you're going to do 1 half double crochet and 1 single crochet, just like that. And now we're going to slip stitch right where we began. So we're going to slip stitch into the legs of this very first stitch right there. So pop your hook in and slip stitch just to finish off our petal. Keep your tail out of the way. We need that one for later. And now looking at the front of your flower, we're going to work around our big petal down here in the same color. So chain 1, and now we're going to slip stitch to start this petal on this side, to start here. So I'm just going to go in to the first stitch that I can. Just pop your hook in and slip stitch. That gets us up to our petal. Chain 1 and 1 single crochet into the next stitch. And now 1 half double crochet into each stitch all the way along the bottom of your petal, or all along this petal. 1 half double crochet into each stitch. So you can pause the video and just keep working along. 1 half double crochet into each stitch, and I'll meet you when you get closer to the end of this petal. At the end of your petal, we have our 1 stitch left, our little guy right there. We're going to do a single crochet into that last stitch, 1 single crochet, and now right into the valley, into this small little stitch down here, we're just going to do a slip stitch to pin down our petal. So just pop your hook in, down in that valley, and slip stitch to finish your petal. Chain 1 to secure your yarn, and cut your yarn, leaving a long enough tail to sew in with a needle later. Pull your hook up and your yarn through and snug that down to secure. So we have our 2 matching tails on each side. We're going to deal with these ones after, so just keep leaving them here. And that finishes color D. To start color E, fold your petals down. We want to be looking for these stitches from our very first color, from color A, right in the middle. So if you fold your stitches down, there's going to be 3 stitches in each section. So 1, 2, 3. We want to put our hook into the very first stitch. Loop of your next color on your hook, whatever you want to just have a little hint of. So bring that through, slip stitch with both strands to join. Drop your tail, just holding it along the back of your work, and chain 1. So this doesn't count for anything. It's just going to start our work. So wrap your yarn and into the same stitch, 4 double crochets. So there is 1, 2, 3, and 4. Into that next stitch, 3 double crochets. 1, 2, and 3. And into the last stitch, 4 double crochets. 1, 2, 3, and 4. So fold your next set of petals down so we can see our 3 stitches in the center there. And we're just going to alternate doing 4 double crochets and then 3 double crochets. So we just finished with a 4 double crochet. So into the first stitch of this section, 3 double crochets. 1, 2, and 3. Into the next stitch, 4 double crochets. 1, 2, 3, and 4. And into the next stitch, 3 double crochets. We're just alternating 3 double crochets and then 4 double crochets around our center. So there's 1, 2, and 3. Fold your next section down. You'll have your 3 stitches, and we're going to start with 4 double crochets, 3 double crochets, and 4 double crochets. So you can pause the video and just keep working along. 4 double crochets, 3 double crochets, and 4 double crochets, and I'll meet you when you get back to where we started. When you're working on this last stitch, you can even fold your work down just so you're not snagging it with your work. Give yourself a nice spot to work without any yarn in the way. So folding that down so we can see, we're going to be doing a slip stitch into our first real stitch. This little guy on the side, it looks like the top of your chain 3, 1, 2, 3, or it's just really the top of your first real double crochet. So we're going to slip stitch into the top of our first real double crochet to join, slip stitch, chain 1, and cut your yarn. Pull your hook up and your yarn through, snug that down to secure, and that finishes color E. Now to start the leaves, or color F, just flip over your work. Keep an eye on where the top of your flower is, the center of our big petal at the back. Just behind the center of our big petal, right here, we have that join. So just in the middle here, just poke your finger there so you can keep track. We want to skip 3 and work in to the 4th. So we're going to skip 1, 2, 3, and we're going to work in to this stitch right here. So into the 4th stitch from that center, just pop your hook in, loop of your leaf color on your hook, bring it through and slip stitch with both strands to join. Drop your tail, just holding it along the back of your work, and chain 1. So this counts as our first single crochet. And now 1 single crochet into each stitch all the way around. So you can pause the video and keep working around 1 single crochet into each stitch all the way around, and I'll meet you when you get back to where we started. When you get back to where we started, we're just going to go into this first stitch we made, just making that into a stitch. So just pop your hook in and slip stitch to join and chain 3. 1, 2, and 3. Now into that very same stitch, that very same little hole right there, we're going to go in and make 1 double crochet, chain 2, 1 and 2, skip 2 stitches, we're skipping those 2, and we're going to work into the 3rd. So into the 3rd stitch, 1 single crochet, chain 2, skip 1 stitch, and into the 2nd, 1 single crochet, chain 2, skip 2, and into the 3rd. We're going to do a corner. Corners are 2 double crochets, chain 2, and 2 double crochets. So there's my first 2 double crochets, chain 2, and 2 more double crochets into that same corner space. Just like that. Chain 2, 1, 2, skip 2, and into the 3rd, 1 single crochet, chain 2, skip 1, and into the 2nd, 1 single crochet, chain 2, skip 2, and into the 3rd, a corner. So corners are 2 double crochets, there's 1 and 2, chain 2, 1 and 2, and into the same corner space, or that same stitch, 2 more double crochets, and chain 2. Skip 2 stitches into the 3rd, 1 single crochet, chain 2, skip 1 into the 2nd, 1 single crochet, chain 2, skip 2, and into the 3rd, a corner. So 2 double crochets, chain 2, and 2 double crochets. So there's my first 2 double crochets, my chain 2, and 2 more double crochets into that same stitch. 1 and 2. Chain 2, skip 2 into the 3rd, 1 single crochet, chain 2, skip 1, and into the 2nd, 1 single crochet, chain 2, skip 2, and we're going to finish our corner into that very same stitch right there. If your stitch count is off, if you have an extra stitch here, you can undo this single crochet and do a skip 2 for this chain 2 right there. Or if you only have 1 stitch left, it's fine. No one's going to notice these ones. The stitch count doesn't totally matter, but if you want your stitch count to be exact, we're going for 32. 32 stitches here and 32 stitches in the green. So wrap your yarn, and into that same stitch where we began, we're going to do our 2 double crochets to finish that corner. 1 and 2, chain 2, 1 and 2, and we're going to slip stitch to the top of that chain 3 to join. Just right there, we're going to slip stitch to join. So pop your hook in and slip stitch, chain 1, and cut your yarn. Pull your hook up and your yarn through, and snug that down to secure. And that finishes color F, or the leaves. So pop your hook into any corner space that you haven't joined your yarn in before. Grab a loop of whatever color you are using to make your granny square. Bring it through and slip stitch with both strands to join, and drop your tail, just holding it along the back of your work. We can work over this tail for a few stitches, and chain 2, 1 and 2. So this counts as our first double crochet, and into that same corner space, 2 double crochets. 1 and 2. Into the next space, 3 double crochets. 1, 2, and 3, and into the next space, 3 double crochets. 1, 2, and 3, and into the next space, 3 double crochets. 1, 2, and 3, and into our corner, we're going to do a corner. So our corners are 3 double crochets, chain 2, and 3 double crochets. So there's 2 double crochets. Here is number 3, chain 2. You can slide those stitches back to give yourself some more room in that corner space, and 3 more double crochets. 1, 2, and 3. Into the next space, 3 double crochets. 1, 2, and 3. And into each of the next 2 spaces, we're going to do 3 double crochets into each. So you can pause the video and just do 3 double crochets into each of these next 2 spaces, and I'll meet you when we get to your corner. Just like that. And now into our corner space, we're going to do our 3 double crochets, chain 2, and 3 double crochets. So there's 1, 2, here's number 3, chain 2, slide those stitches back if you need more space, and 3 double crochets to finish off that corner. 1, 2, and 3. So you can pause the video and keep working along. 3 double crochets into each space along the sides, and corners of 3 double crochets, chain 2, and 3 double crochets all the way around, and I'll meet you when we get back to where we started. Just like that. And now into our corner space where we started, you can slide those stitches forward to give yourself some more room, and we're going to finish with 3 double crochets into that same corner space. 1, 2, and 3. Now if you're going to continue and turn this into the Bloomscape cowl or a larger granny square, you're going to join with a chain 1, and you're going to single crochet into the top of this chain 3 to join. So we're going to join with a chain 1 and a single crochet if you're going to keep going. So single crochet to join. Just like that, it leaves us in the middle of that corner. Just hold your corner open with your finger and thumb. Chain 3, 1, 2, 3, and turn your work. So if you're doing the Bloomscape cowl, I'll link that tutorial up in the cards as well as in the comments and description box down below. And now you just follow that video to turn this into the Bloomscape cowl block. And if you are just keeping going with a regular granny square, you will just start your 2 double crochets into this corner and then keep working along with your 3 double crochets into each space. So that is how you join if you are going to keep going. And if you're going to end your granny square on this row, chain 2, 1, 2, and now we're going to slip stitch into the top of that chain 3. So slip stitch to join, just like that, and chain 1 to secure your yarn. Cut your yarn, leaving a long enough tail to sew in with a needle later. Pull your hook up and your yarn through and snug that down to secure. And that finishes color G. So now we are ready to do our tails. So on one side we have 2 tails that are together, they're matching and they're both snug. And then on the other side we have a tail in the front and a tail in the back. This back petal is loose. So we'll start with this one. I'm just going to pop my hook in to just anywhere, it doesn't really matter. Maybe the side stitch right here along the edge. And I'm just going to bring this second color or this lighter shade through. Just like that, just so we want to pin down that last petal. So now we're attached. I'm going to take my one from the front and we're just going to give these a double knot. So there's 1 and 2. Nice and snug. If you are using a cotton yarn or something, don't pull too hard. We're still going to sew in these ends. That's just to pin these 2 sides together. just to keep this back petal up with our front petal here. And now we'll do the same on the other side, just a little double knot. 1 and 2. And now before you sew in your tails, you can decide if you want to pin it down. You can use one of these tails when you're sewing it in to kind of pin down your flower if you feel you want to. You don't have to. But if you don't want it super, super loose, we can just pin this down. So I use whatever yarn is at the back, or the matching color, the darkest one. Just thread your needle and just see where it's naturally sitting. And I'm just going to loop it through a little bit of my granny square, not through the back, just a couple strands at the top, because we're just pinning it down. Like that. And now I can go ahead and just sew in that tail, matching your colors. And you can do that on the other side as well, and then sew in your tails. And you're finished. So I hope you enjoyed this tutorial as much as I did. I'm waiting for you in that video right there, and stay hooked.